Michelle Smart. I'm an enrolled agent trying to keep you updated on the latest on the employee retention tax credit. So today's topic is disallowance letters, partial disallowance letters from the IRS. Now, let's take a look at one that one of the subscribers shared with us. And you can see this, well, it was sent certified mail. And what they're just basically saying is, we've partially disallowed your claim, and they will give an amount on here. They'll say how much they've disallowed. So what does this mean? First of all, we have to pull out our crystal ball if we are not familiar with these letters from the IRS. We're trying to back into why is this partially disallowed, and what can I do to appeal it? So the IRS is going back and they're looking at what you originally reported as to how much you had in wages. So if you have $500,000 in wages, then you can't come over here. Here's your 941X. I'll show you 941X. It's your 941X. And box 30, qualified wages for the employee retention tax credit. You can't have the 941 say $500,000 in wages, and then when you claim the ERC, put $750,000 worth of wages. So that's what the IRS is looking at, first of all. But what I'm seeing more often is this, that the IRS is looking here in box 1. This is the number of employees. And what they're doing is multiplying that by the maximum allowable refund per employee, and they're coming up with a number. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So if you have 25 employees in that box 1 of your 941, the maximum amount of your refund is 25 times 7,000, or 175,000 is your claim, the maximum amount of your claim. So if the amount that's disallowed, if you can divide it evenly by 7,000, it's kind of telling you what the IRS is thinking. You can figure it out. In other words, here's an example here. If that letter of partial disallowance said that the IRS disallowed $70,000, you can, of your $175,000 claim, what you can usually figure out is that they are disallowing 10 of your employees. Now, the IRS is making mistakes on this, first of all. And second of all, it isn't as simple as the IRS would have you believe. So here's a scenario on the number of employees. In April, you had 10 employees. Now, in May, 2 of those employees left, and you had 2 new employees. In June, 3 employees left, and you had 5 new employees. At any given time, or at the point in time that's designated on the 941, it may say 10 employees. However, you have 17, in this scenario, you have 17 eligible employees. And often you just have to write back in your appeal and tell that to the IRS. So I want to emphasize that when you get a partial disallowance, this is not the IRS asking you to substantiate that you qualified. It is not saying that you didn't qualify. It's just a number. They're saying your number's wrong, and they want you to write them back and explain why you are entitled to more than what their maximum amount came out to be. And I think oftentimes I just write in the letter, well, at that given point that is stated on the 941, we had 10 employees. However, we had 17 eligible employees over the quarter. And so that's why we're allowed. It's very, very simple information to give back to the IRS. Again, they are not questioning the claim when you get a letter like that. They're disallowing part of it. And it's usually because, one, you in your 941X requested the ERC for wages that are greater than what you originally reported on your 941, or 2, that your number of employees times 7,000 is less than the refund that you requested. So, as with all these things with the IRS, we always respond within the scope of the question. This is absolutely vital. This is absolutely crucial. Everyone knows this, that when you are in an audit, you do not bring up any other topic. This is why you usually hire an accountant, because if you yourself bring up the topic, you've opened the door. Now the IRS can ask questions about that. So we don't bring up a topic other than what the IRS is asking for. We don't send back a phone book worth of documents explaining I qualify and here's why and here's all the laws. No, the IRS agents look at it, hundreds of these every day. They just want you to respond. You respond according to the appeal, and you make it very simple. Such as in this example, you might say, oh, it looks like what you're saying is that we only had 10 eligible employees in that quarter, when in fact, if you look at our 941, we had 15 eligible employees. Or we say we had only 10 employees during that given point that are listed on the 941. However, throughout the entire quarter, we had employees coming and going, and we therefore have more eligible employees than the number of employees that are listed on the 941. So now we've taken out our crystal ball, and normally if we look at these numbers, we can figure out what the IRS is doing with the number of employees or the wages. Like I said, it's one of two things. You have asked for a refund by saying that eligible wages for ERC exceeded your original reported wages, or the number of employees on your 941 times 7,000 maximum amount is less than the amount that you reported. So in that case, you just make it very simple. We had, whatever number of eligible employees, and times 7,000, that's the maximum amount that we could have. This is the amount that we applied for. This is the amount that you paid us. We are now due a balance of whatever it is. But make it very simple. Don't send a lot of documents. You want a summary document on the top, just stating really nicely spaced out, here's the information. Anybody who's looked at 100 of these is going to go, oh yeah, this is an easy one. Yeah, let's just do this one. And you've explained it. They don't want anything else. Just give them the letter, explain that, and not anything else. You can bring a copy of the original 941, such as in the case of this client. It was very clear that the original 941 had an amount of employees that allowed them the claim that they requested. So it was on the IRS mistake. They entered the number of employees wrong into their system, and that's all it was. And so you just have to write about, oh, you probably made a typographical error. Look at my 941. Here's the number of employees times 7,000. So we're still due this balance. Very simple. And don't give them any other information. Remember, they're not disallowing the claim. They are disputing the amount, and often they're wrong. So just correct it, appeal according to what the appeal asks you for. I have other videos on how to do the appeal. Just follow through. You're smart enough. You can handle responding and doing the appeal to the partial suspension. So this is Michelle Smart. I'm an enrolled agent. Please like and subscribe. And if you had this issue and you could see from looking at your own documents that the IRS miscalculated the number of employees, please give a comment below so other people can understand this is a very common error that's happening with the IRS. Thanks again for watching.